see if this thing actually works. Okay, I'm seeing input. I'm not seeing output. God, I hope this thing actually works. So here we go. Oh, in 3, 2, 1.
Hello? Are you ready?
Yes.
Then we'll begin.
It's experiment day in these parts. We are trying to figure out how to do all of this while we're no longer on Google Hangouts. So whether it works or whether it doesn't, we'll find out. This is Monday Morning Catholic, episode 123.
6:30 Monday morning.
I'm not worthy! I'm not worthy!
Here's my number, so call me maybe.
I got a bad feeling about this.
Well, isn't that special?
What would you do with a brain if you had one?
The voice of the people cannot be denied.
Houston, we have a problem.
Do you hear what I hear?
Could it be Satan?
Please proceed with extreme caution.
It's good to be alive right about now.
Stand by to receive our transmission.
I hate to say this, but between Mr. Spock and Apollo 13, we may be using those little clips a lot today. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to another edition of the Monday Morning Catholic Podcast. I'm your host and moderator, Joanne Mercier. If you're watching the video, if this video even makes it, you will see we no longer have the lovely lower third telling you who we are, so you better guess when the names go through. But we are trying for the first time to record this podcast on Skype. Now, I've always had an aversion to Skype because Skype tends to, how shall we say, drop people every once in a while. That may happen. We don't know what's going to happen, but we're giving it the old college try. So we do have a few people with us today. Thank God they're all along for the ride. And what you all don't know is we've been talking for an hour before we started this. So we don't know what we have left to say. But over in the secret squares, wherever they happen to be, because now they're not in the same place anymore, we'll start with ladies first. Linda Reed from St. Thomas's in Providence, Rhode Island. Good morning, Linda. How you doing?
Good morning. I'm doing okay. We'll see how this whole thing goes.
She remembered to unmute. Good, because
I
can't see that anymore either. It's going to be interesting. The Paul Lynde middle square here, at least on my camera, is Steve Romano from St. Augustine's in Providence. Good morning, Steve. How you doing?
And and now I don't remember that show, but he was a funny guy, right?
Yes, he was. And
right.
Just by you saying you don't remember that show, I feel extremely old at this point. And coming back, now that we've got him all hooked up and ready to go, is Steve Kirby from St. Luke's in Barrington, Rhode Island. Good morning, Steve. How you doing?
Joanne, good. How are you?
We're not bad. We're trying to get Steve hooked up into all things technology here. It'll take him a little while to catch up to the learning curve of the others, but I see no problems so far. We do know we're going to have a lot of glitches today. Okay, yes. So let's just put that out on the table right now, on top of the fact that we don't have a real topic.
Yeah.
We've been asking and asking and asking for people to send us topic, suggestions. However, I think most of you people want to see us crash and burn.
Yeah.
All 10 of you.
All 10 of you who are watching this podcast want to see us crash and burn. So, okay, it will be what we call a free-for-all, all right, which could be very interesting, to say the very least.
Yeah, it should be very interesting.
We also don't know if Nancy is going to pop in because we've been trying to get her to join this little group here for the last few minutes, and it hasn't worked. So, but we're going to, enough of the trying to apologize for all this. We haven't apologized in 122 episodes, so why should I keep apologizing at this point? How y'all doing? Y'all ready for this?
Yeah, well, you'll find out.
I guess we will.
You ask the questions, we'll talk.
Okay, for those of you who have just stumbled upon this, God help you. But we are here on Monday Morning Catholic where we look back at lots of things that go on in the Catholic Church, and we are never at a loss for opinions as to how we think it should go. So this is how it works here. And we have no homily this week, so sometimes we throw in a homily. We did last time. But we are on an every other week schedule at this point, which I still think is going to stay that way, only because my schedule keeps getting worse and worse. So, but we are going to continue on. I will say one thing right up front. People did actually listen to my pastor's radio show this past week. He is now on WVBF 1530 AM in the Taunton, Massachusetts area, or you can go online and listen to him like we did because we don't live near Taunton. And he did quite well. So I have a feeling this podcast might get focused on at one point because he wants to interview me and ask me, what I do with it. So, maybe we'll have 2 more people join us. Or we'll have JR come back, which would be because he's from Taunton. So, but anyway, we do have, guess what? Believe it or not, we have some feedback. And this feedback's been on ice for a little while, so I'll apologize for that. I forgot about it the last couple of times you recorded. So don't kill me. Don't kill me, Beth Ann. You came from Beth Ann in Florida. And she sent us and I can't show it because I don't know how to use the screenshot anymore. I'll figure that out another time. She sent us a nice, insert that they put in their bulletin every week, I hope. Or it looks like, well, no, which Mass was this? This would have been Assumption. That was not on a Saturday, correct? That was a Monday? This was not on a weekend.
It was a Monday.
It was a Monday.
Yep.
All right.
It was August 14th.
Right. So I'm thinking it could have just been for the feast day. I know some people put things like this on a weekly or a seasonal basis, but it gives them the music for the Mass in print, as well as which liturgical ministers are ministering, as far as music, and then some information, like since it's the Cathedral Women's Schola, for example, what is a schola? So they explain that. What are the propers of the Mass? They explain that. And why bother singing chant? They explain that. I like these little, as a liturgist, I like these little liturgical blurbettes, as I call them, because I think it gives people a chance to understand a lot of the jargon, number one, that we throw around, and also some of what we do, because I know they have questions, and they don't think to go after Mass and ask any of you any of the questions. Now, do they?
Right.
Do you ever have visitors come up and say anything to you when you're at Mass?
Usually, if somebody comes up after Mass, I say I'm quite blessed. They either come up to give me a compliment, or they come up to ask me about a particular piece of music that we did.
Okay.
Nobody ever comes up and says, what is he doing while we're singing the Lamb of God?
Okay.
Nobody ever comes up and asks a liturgical question. It's always, what was the name of that song you did at communion, or, whatever.
All right. How about you two, loft dwellers? Because she's down on the floor. It's easy for people to come up to her.
Oh, I think generally, by the time I get downstairs, most of the church is gone, unless someone has decided to stay and talk to me. For example, last Saturday, one of the older women who goes to our 5 o'clock Mass had lost her friend. And he died down in Virginia, and she'd gone down to Virginia to the funeral, and she said, I got to pick out all the music, and she said, I used a lot of things that I hear you use, Steve, and that was really kind of nice. She said, but I waited for you tonight because I chose to play Amazing Grace last weekend on the piano, just as an instrumental, and she was in tears because that's what she had at her friend's funeral. She just wanted to let me know that it made her feel good, and she thanked me, and I said, oh, you're very welcome. And generally, when people do that, I say, if you ever want to hear something, don't be afraid to ask it. I like welcome people's input into what we sing. and when we sing. I think that's really important.
No. I like to hear what people have to say too. When especially, you folks program in a vacuum, basically.
Yeah.
So you don't know what's going to affect people really, and sometimes you don't think you affect people at all, and all of a sudden they're coming to you like, "Oh man, that song really hit me today." You've had some visitors, Steve Romano, up to your loft lately. I think I've read that. Or am I wrong?
Well, I'll echo everything that Steve said, because I've had that same experience that that he just mentioned all those different times. But at where I currently am, I've gotten some feedback from emails and
good.
Without going too much into
no
things,
names.
No names. No, I've been told that I'm more of a presence in the parish. So people I think are comfortable with me, and I've had some people come up and ask me different questions. But I also think, even though some people don't come up and ask you questions, we should give the people a lot more credit, because they're very perceptive, and they take note of things, whether we think they do or they don't.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
For instance, I had one person say to me, "I notice before Mass, the last prelude piece you always play is some sort of a take on the opening song."
Oh.
All right.
And so and this was a guy. He said, so I nudged my wife and I said, "See that? You hear that? He's playing what we're going to sing. So he's making us get the tune in our head." So people are very perceptive. I did have one guy say I play too loud. I told him to sing louder.
That's always the mantra.
Yes.
But Steve Kirby, you've been to St. Augustine's. There's no way to play soft.
Yeah.
No, not really.
The building is huge, and if you're gonna be too timid, it's not going to help the situation. So,
if I was sitting at that organ, I'd open up that sucker just the same way you did, because it is a magnificent instrument. It is a wonderful instrument, and it was built for that church.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's the way it should be played.
Yeah.
Somewhere on Facebook in the last couple of days, I don't know, someone did this discussion about people playing too loudly. And I didn't do a very good explanation of it, but when I was taking organ lessons when I was very young in my teenage years, I was taking from a man at St. Michael's Church in South Providence, which originally had a beautiful pipe organ in it. And he would say, when people look at me and say, I play too loudly, he said, I just look right at them and say, yes, I do.
I love it.
Well, that was my post. I posted that meme of the Dowager Duchess.
Oh, that was you? Oh, geez.
Yes.
My school of thought on this is this. I'm trying my best, everything I can, to encourage participation.
Amen.
If you play too softly and without enough support, people aren't going to sing because they're going to be afraid.
Amen.
Right.
If you play, being an organist and trained how to do what I'm supposed to do, I know how to make things that other people might not even notice happen. For instance, the entrance processional hymn, you want to play with a little bit more gusto and a little bit more registration.
Yes.
I'm not going to use that registration for the psalm.
Right.
I'm not going to use that registration for communion. But, those different things. And I know I've seen comments, again, online on social media that talk about the voice of the cantor should not overpower the assembly.
Okay.
Well, that's all well and good, and I do agree with that. But when you have a very timid assembly,
they need
help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Joanne, you might have something to say about that.
Well, my thing on that is, and again, I agree, nothing should really overpower the assembly, because you want them to hear their own voice too. You don't want to drown them out so much that they feel like they don't want to participate. On the other hand, I know that organists play loudly because for a long time, and rightly so, you are all trained that you are leading the singing. Okay? The organ leads the singing, really, if you think about it, because it's the loudest thing in the room. Well, it is. It's the loudest thing in the room.
It's very hard to go against the organ.
Right.
Because it's the loudest voice in the room. Yes.
Right. But a good organist, which I think we have two of them here, will set the tempi right from the first note and keep it at a volume where people can hear themselves, hear the organ, and if there is a cantor, if they need a cantor, fine. It's when you get the guys and gals who believe they are concert organists, and now everything is the organ and not the rest of the room. There's where I'll have a little pick, I have a bone to pick with.
It's interesting you say that, because when Stephen was just speaking about his registrational progression through Mass, I totally agree. My opening hymn is going to be with a full organ.
Yep.
My closing hymn is going to be with a full organ. The psalm, offertory communion will be somewhat more subdued. And I follow that pattern, and I have for years and years and years. However, about a year ago, I was not happy with the responses. The Holy, Holy, the acclamation, the Amen. And I was playing them too softly. And it wasn't encouraging the people to sing. And so I decided to use a full organ on the Holy Holy. And I'm very repetitive. I don't do a lot of switching of Mass settings until they know something really, really well.
Okay.
And the past year, we're using the Heritage Mass every weekend, and they're singing to beat the band.
Good.
The entire congregation is participating, and I think it's because I gave them more organ.
But, Stephen, the Holy Holy is a good place to have a little more fuller organ.
And not only that, I think something that you need to be aware of, all of us are, is I could play the same song in two different spots in the Mass, and I'm going to register it different.
Right.
Exactly.
Yes.
For instance, if I'm going to do We Are Called, let's say, and we're going to do it for the entrance procession, I'm going to play it very different than if we did it, let's say, at the preparation of the gifts.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Right.
Yes. Good point.
But I don't know that that's something that you can teach. You just have to kind of figure that out.
Yes.
Well, you have to be taught about the rise and fall of what happens in the liturgy.
Exactly.
There's a rhythm in the liturgy, and you have to be careful, for example, that you're building to the gospel Alleluia. So you kind of have to be careful that what comes before it in the liturgy of the word is not bigger than the gospel Alleluia.
Yeah.
So
Right.
you have to know the flow of the liturgy.
And the only other comment I've received from people, and it was nice, is that people notice that I typically, on a given weekend, we do 2 old and 2 new.
Okay.
Because like it or not, we're still part of the hymn sandwich issue.
Yeah.
So, and I've got other problems to worry about before we even get away from that. But I typically pick 2 old and 2 new. And I usually start with old and end with old, and the 2 new ones are in the middle.
There you go.
But some weekends it works a little different. But people notice all of that stuff. They really do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they do. They just don't know how to give names.
Ordinary time too. I want to say maybe, and not always from the hymnal, it may be an ottavo, but I encourage the congregation at least 5 times a year to learn something new.
Oh yeah.
And I'll do it repetitively for a month, so they're sick of it, but then they know it, and I can put it away and bring it out as needed. And I like ordinary time because that gives me the flexibility to experiment a little bit before we're into the seasons where we have to do certain things that are just required of us.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think people know they're attuned to what's going on. Sometimes they don't know what to name it.
Yes.
So, and I think things like what Beth Ann sent us are meant to help people name or understand what they're sensing. Okay.
Yeah.
So just to be a little more descriptive, as to what Beth Ann sent us, she sent us a page from a bulletin that has the what is going to be sung and what numbers you can find, and then after that was a little paragraph on what a scola is, a little paragraph on what the propers of the Mass are, and a little paragraph on why we sing chant.
Right.
And that's a wonderful thing because, nobody thinks they need to go to a class on what the Mass is. And yet, people don't really realize why we do what we do half the time.
Right.
So I think we need to do a better job of that.
Right.
Yeah, well,
I
that's
agree.
what I'm saying. What Beth Ann sent is a really nice thing that goes in the bulletin,
Right.
It's very helpful to people.
Yeah, I totally agree. Because, and then at the bottom of it, there's a little box that's, we hope the music offered by the Cathedral Women's Scholar this evening afforded you an opportunity to find a source of prayer in sacred texts that have been chanted during the church's liturgy since as early as the 7th century. If you have questions or concerns about the Schola or are interested in joining, which is right there, a great piece of marketing, please email, and there's her email address, which I think you folks should have your email address in every bulletin so that if people want to get a hold of you, don't say that I know you want to say, oh no, they're going to send us hate mail, but no, I also think sometimes people are afraid to come up to you after Mass. Like I know Linda did a pitch for a month. She pitched, everybody else pitched, and she pitched again. But I know some people are hesitant to come up after Mass or have to run after Mass. And if they don't have that contact information, they'll forget it the minute they leave, the minute they go home.
One of the interesting things is that we started at the beginning of the summer. My pastor put something in the bulletin encouraging people to sing. And I mentioned it before Mass began, and I mentioned it before the recessional hymn. I said, our pastor has put in ponderings that he'd like us to sing more. And the people responded extremely well. Now, granted, I didn't do anything too newish. I wanted to stick with stuff. Like, Holy God, we praise thy name, so they could hear their sound. And that has really worked well. And I think that we do have a responsibility to communicate more with our congregations. I'm very comfortable doing that. My pastor is very comfortable with me doing that. But one of our colleagues, who shall remain nameless because we're on a public podcast, was saying
in a diocese far, far away.
Please?
In a diocese far, far away.
Diocese far. Yes. He remarked that he's not allowed to speak to the congregation. So that's another problem. Certain work traditions don't always allow people to do maybe what they want to do. And I think that's problematic.
And I think that's going to be, I think that's going to be like that all the time because every parish has as its head a pastor to whom everyone is responsible to.
Yep.
And in a collaborative, at least my collaborative, that's times 3.
Yeah.
So, but we still have, thank God we have one pastor, and he's pretty level-headed, which is a good thing. Each of our parishes is a little bit different in music. I mean, we have the really contemporary, the really more traditional, however you want to air quote that.
It's
the
so
middle
interesting. Like what Joanne just said, it is so interesting the wide variety we have.
Yeah.
You can go down the street and it would be almost a whole other world.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, Stephen, you and I are just like across a college campus from one another.
Right.
And look at the difference.
Right. You are.
Right. And that is so interesting. And the other thing I want to say is reading this sheet about why bother singing chant and the like. I think the other issue we have is acoustically, a lot of our buildings are not good.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest.
Really?
Wall-to-wall carpet. You know,
Whoa.
low ceilings. You know, I'm lucky where I am that the few chanting things that we do, the building sings with the chant.
Right.
But I'm thinking of like another church, I won't name any, that has wall-to-wall carpet. Ceiling is 9 feet high. It's just not going to happen. I'm sorry, it's just not.
Doesn't work.
And I don't see how you can get the people to get into the rhythm of the chant when it just doesn't even fill the room.
Yeah, that is an issue. And I think I've talked about it on the podcast before, where there are newer pieces now that do incorporate some chant into them, and they work very well with a contemporary addition. Yes. And I think right now, for a lot of places with that type of situation, it may be the best they can do. If you have a place like St. Augustine's, however, it's every once in a while, if you pulled one out, it would soar in that place.
That's what I mean. And it would be more effective. But I'm thinking of places where I've played.
Right.
And I agree with you, Joanne. I think the pieces that effectively work in chant, accompany chant, I think that those pieces are the most effective. And I go back to things even that Pelican wrote.
Wow, exactly.
That have, I'm thinking like In Memory of You with the very clever refrain, but then he worked in the Ave Verum chant. But at least it's accompanied, so it has some forward motion where the music doesn't drop out altogether. At least I don't think it does. I'm not sure. No. I might, but
another.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, you mentioned that incorporating a chant. We do a piece by Dan Cantor called Ave Maria, where he incorporates the Latin Ave Maria into a contemporary piece.
Yeah, and I've done that. It's very nice.
It's very nice.
I get my chant in those situations also. But
I do agree with Stephen in terms of buildings. Over the years, I've tried to do a little bit more with chant, and with so much wood and wall-to-wall carpeting in my church, it just doesn't flow. And my choir members have a hard time getting the feel because the sound doesn't roll. I mean, it just doesn't roll. My church is too small for it. It just is, and acoustically, it's not designed for that.
Right. Are they coming to take us away? Or?
That was me.
Oh, jeez.
Hey, have a cup of coffee at 4:45 in the afternoon.
Well, there you go. And we're 28 minutes into the podcast, and we haven't dropped anybody yet. So I think that's a lovely thing.
So I think a lot of times people don't realize how bad the buildings are against us trying to make music.
I agree.
You know?
I agree.
I know one of the issues, and all of you are familiar with St. Augustine's, one of the issues I'm having is people are saying to me, and my wife even commented on this because, Steve, she sat downstairs the other night.
Yeah.
She sat towards the front, and she said, have you ever thought of miking the choir?
Wow. Really?
Now, Beth will usually sit up with us, so she's right there. But St. Augustine's is huge.
Yeah. Right.
So, of course, when you get to the front, the sound is going to decrease.
Right.
But she said it's a noticeable decrease. And now our sound system will eventually be replaced, but I'm almost wondering how we could reinforce the sound of the choir.
Right.
Or if even that's a good idea, I don't know.
I have 2 choral hanging mics.
Yeah.
And they do amplify the choir very nicely, especially when I have a poorly attended Sunday Instead of having 22 people, I end up with 12 because it's a holiday weekend. And this town all goes away on holiday weekends. So I found it's been very helpful when the choir is smaller, and the amplification is really rather nice. And I've gotten comments, wow. Someone will say to me, oh, I counted 12 people going to communion, but they sounded like 25. I know that it's working. And they're hanging mics, Stephen. I don't know if you can recall seeing them in my choir.
Yeah. The problem with us, though, Steve, is we've got the organ pipes.
Yeah.
So I don't want to amplify the organ sound.
Right. There's got to be a way, Steve. I know other people in your position. There's got to be a way that they do the amplification in a loft. But I can't remember right off the top of my head what it is, whether it's a hanging that hangs low enough so that it doesn't grab the pipes, or depending on the direction of the mics. I'm not sure.
Exactly. So I think it's something we're going to have to look at eventually, because I think it's an issue. But I know, like, I even take our cathedral. I've been to liturgies there when the choir mics are not on, and you cannot hear the choir.
No, because
the building is just too big.
And alive.
And alive. And yet, I understand from a purist point of view, where if the choir mics are on, the choir is coming right from those central hanging speakers. But it needs amplification.
Yeah.
So it's something we're going to have to look at. But my wife, who doesn't normally say too much on stuff like that, she made that comment to me. She said, we were sitting towards the front, and she said, you can hear the choir. Now, maybe I should go down and listen.
Oh, yeah.
Because maybe what she means is, she's used to being right with us, so of course you're going to hear them.
Right.
Maybe it's fine. It's just she's not used to it being that far away. I don't know. But
I usually go out during rehearsal. I usually, if I can find somebody else to play, try to go out and hear what the group is sounding like.
But I know
I want to get back to the thing that we're supposed to be commenting on.
Yes, please, and we'll be wrapping it up. So let's.
Is that paper?
Yes.
I have one pro and one con. The thing I do not like is the liturgical music at Mass this evening will be sung by the Cathedral Women's Schola.
Okay, all right, I understand
don't
why.
like that, because that implies that they are performing. All right?
Right, I get that.
And then the other thing is, I like the fact that they
the caveat.
Wait, I'm not done. They were singing in Latin. There's an ambulance stopping on my street. They were singing a Latin piece for the preparation of the gifts, and they put the English translation in there, and I think that's very helpful. I think that's really good.
And I will say, Linda, I think what I agree with the first one you said, but if you notice, there's a little comma and it says "in part."
Yes,
by the Cathedral Women's Schola. So I think in their minds,
they covered it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, I see that. All right. Yeah. Would you have rather it said accompanied or something like that?
No,
or enhanced,
or the Cathedral Women's Schola will lead us.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
I would agree there.
All right. That's better. Well, I think it's a wonderful thing, that we have these types of, that places will put this type of stuff. And again, it's a cathedral. And since the cathedrals are the mother churches and they're supposed to be leading the way in liturgy in a diocese, it's nice to see that they're actually trying. So, Beth Ann, thank you so much for sending that to us. I know it's a little bit late, but better late than never. Yes. I'm glad I found it when I'd completely forgotten about it, I'd be honest. I'd completely forgotten about it, and then I found it and said, oh, good, we can use that this week.
Yes, we can use that.
Because the only other feedback we got was someone else got to our Survey Monkey, yay, and actually took the survey again. So, and this, people are being very nice on the Survey Monkey. They're saying, oh, we like everything. All right, fine. They want us to keep most of it Some people are torn between keeping the homilies because I think they understand we're not doing it every week, so it might get a little icky. But this person really wants Allison Gingras to come back. Now, I don't know if this is her husband or not, or a good friend of hers, but they would like Allison back. Folks, Allison's schedule is about as crazy as mine. But if I can get Allison back at some point, I will do it. So it might be a little while because our schedules don't match. So, but we'll try. We are trying to get other folks, so don't worry. We would like it if you would send us feedback. We would like it if you would send us a topic for the next one. Or you're just going to get us rambling, which we're not really doing, but we're doing what I don't want is it to always be, and I'll be very honest because we're all musicians, the musician's corner, because now that's a whole other show. So please let us talk about other things. If you want us to do that, please send us some feedback at mondaymorningcatholic@gmail.com. You can put it in the comment box on our website, mondaymorningcatholic.net. You can put it up on the visitor section of our Facebook page, facebook.com/mondaymorningcatholic. And remember,
I'm sorry, but all questions must be submitted in writing.
It does not have to be submitted in writing because you can. But here's my number, so call me maybe. Call us on the voice feedback line, 774-955-0659. Someone keeps calling that number and not leaving a message. Is it you? I don't see 401, let me tell you.
I'm trying to order takeout and I keep pressing the wrong number.
Oh. No, it isn't tape. This is not and this is honest. This is very honest. One of our secretaries at the collaborative has on her phone, believe it or not, 3 other numbers that are almost exactly like the phone number to our collaborative. They're like 1 or 2 numbers off. So I guess when people call, she gives them the right number.
Yeah.
Joanne, growing up at my grandmother's house, her number was 1 number off from this doctor's office.
Oh, yeah.
And I can remember as a kid, she would do the same thing. No, she's gonna just the last number's wrong.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing.
I had a former choir member, who did retire from the choir, and she was in the choir a very long time, and her telephone number was 1 number off from Domino's.
Oh, ouch.
She was calling, ordering pizza every night for years.
Oh, man.
She her number because it just wouldn't stop.
Oh,
which I always found to be rather amusing.
Oh, jeez.
And there's no way to stop it. No, there's no way to stop it.
Yeah, okay. Then let's move on because we're going to take it out of order and because I think they think this topic is depressing right now.
Go.
We're going to go straight to the voice of the people on this podcast because on our Facebook page, our lovely Facebook friends decided in droves to both share and read the particular article that we put up called 5 Warning Signs of a Toxic Faith. All right. What you going to say, Linda?
Nothing. I was laughing.
Okay. All right. Now, we all know toxic people in our lives. Okay? And I guess this is a chance to help us not be so toxic in our own faith. So I'll go over it quickly because they're all like, oh, how depressing is that? But I don't think it's very depressing because I think there are a lot of people who really sincerely want to grow in their faith, but they don't know how. And if they find themselves in one of these 5 categories, which I don't believe is exhaustive in any way, shape, or form, it might help them. So first of all, these are the 5 ways that this particular author, and it's a nun, Sister Teresa Noble, these are the warning signs. First, the joyless Catholic. Okay? Are you unable to laugh with others about the issues of faith or just let things go? You know?
Let it go.
Can you let it go? I think there are a lot of people who take their lives and their Catholicism too seriously. I'll be honest. Okay? And I don't, and now before somebody sends me hate mail, it is serious. Okay? Your faith is serious. But there were other times, Jesus also probably laughed. If Jesus wept, Jesus laughed.
Yeah.
Okay? And I'm sure there are things that made him laugh about, you know, the trappings of our faith. And it made him giggle, I'm sure. And I think this is the same kind of thing, too. You know, she's trying to get us to look at being more of an evangelizer than the, like, for example, the liturgical police. Okay, I can be a liturgical policeman at times, but I really now ascribe to the, rather than saying what you're doing wrong, I would rather say, have you considered the following? I did that a few times last night at a worship committee meeting. Have you considered the following?
Yeah.
You know, it's instead of saying, no, don't do that. Please don't do that. So there are joyless Catholics around that are just really, I think that they're uni-focused. They can't see outside the parameter. Okay? Agree, disagree, are you a joyless Catholic? Go. And they all say nothing. It's like the crickets are out again.
I agree, though, Joanne. I do have some people come to mind in my parish that I'm going to call a joyless Catholics. One of them sent me a very long letter discussing what I did for Holy Thursday.
Oh.
And there were some severe criticisms. And I just decided to ignore it. Okay. Because I had gone over my liturgy and my outline with my pastor. Okay. I also felt that it's Holy Thursday. So we sang an extra couple of verses during the washing of the feet. Or we sang a couple of extra verses at the offertory. It's not a holy day of obligation. You don't have to be there. You're there because you want to be. And you want to be part of this experience. So I chose not to respond. And I've not seen this person in church. I've seen his spouse in the church. And I've always smiled and said, hi, how are you? Good to see you. Trying to be just very positive because I do think that we have a lot of people in our churches that are joyless. And they're looking to criticize, whether it be the musicians, whether it be the lectors, whether it be the priest, whether it be the ushers, who knows. I think that we need to smile and try to be very positive. I think that's just an important part of our aspect. I never go into my church and go up to someone without smiling and saying, hi, how are you? Mm-hmm. I know it's raining, but, you know, we need the rain, the ground is dry. That's part of my ministry, is to be positive all the time with all people.
Well, it also seems to be one of the major messages of our Pope. He is very much into the joy of our faith.
Yep.
And what our faith should inspire in us is joy, and that's how we're going to evangelize. Nobody is going to come join a bunch of poker-faced people.
Absolutely.
Who don't look like they're having a good time.
And I don't have that clip of Poker Face. Darn.
Yeah.
And I agree with what they just both said. I can't really add much more to that.
Okay. I think I really do think that we need to be more evangelizers, and the Pope is showing us that. He's showing us how to be joyful so that people are attracted to us, because there are people out there who use the 7 worst words any Catholic minister could hear. We've always done it that way. And the minute you do something else, their mind, you ever see the commercial where the mind blows and the purple smoke comes out? Yeah, that's what happens. So you don't want to be that way. Sometimes we do have to laugh at ourselves. Sometimes we have to take action, though, if people are making fun of us, and that's a totally different topic. Different. So you have to know the difference between the two. The second one, and very timely for this year, is the Democrat-Republican Catholic.
Oh, yeah.
And everybody...
I'm not even going to open my mouth. You guys go.
Houston, we have a problem.
Yeah. That's a very difficult one right now. And in fact, both Linda and I are wearing our We Voted Today because we have primaries in Rhode Island on this Tuesday, the 13th of September. And we both did our civic duty, as we should as Catholics. But if you're obsessed about politics this year, I'm not even friending you on Facebook right now because I just can't listen to it anymore. I know who I'm voting for, and I'll be honest, it's nobody on the official list. So,
are you going to vote for me, Joanne?
I was thinking about it, Steve, if you'll accept the nomination.
You know what is really sad is, speaking of social media and the election, it's really been eye-opening to see people's posts.
Oh, please. Oh, please.
And some of the stuff that and people who I thought I knew very well.
Yeah.
Holy smokes. I mean, it's,
Well,
you know, I'm staying out. I stay out of it on social media. Yep. I'm staying out of it here.
Yeah, this is a very bad year. And all I can do, and I think any of us can do, is just pray. At this point, pray, pray and vote our conscience. That's about it.
Next point.
Yes. Number 3. Everybody's going to move on, Joanne. The Pharisaical.
I did vote, Joanne. After I talked to you earlier, I went out to the polls, but I didn't want a sticker.
Oh, okay, fine.
Well, I got my sticker.
I got mine too. Number 3, the Pharisaical Catholic.
Oh,
okay, is faith to you about duty and doing more than it is about inner transformation. Now, to be fair, there is still a classification of older Catholics to whom that is being Catholic, doing your duty, doing what you're supposed to. Some of them are coming around to inner transformation. That's a good thing. Others, I worry about. The younger ones.
Joanne, there's a certain, I think there's a certain level of transformation that occurs when you do what you must.
Right.
Okay. I think, you go about fulfilling your duty as a Catholic, and as you do that in the course of living, that duty becomes a part of who you are.
Right.
And that in turn leads to some internal transformation.
Right.
In some people.
In some
people, it doesn't. So there you go.
Right. Again, it's really hard when we try to stress that prayer, has to be the center. It has to be the center of all of our lives. And it's a tough thing, especially for us, those of us who are ministers in the church. Prayer can sometimes be the last thing we do because we're so busy doing everything else.
My preparation.
Exactly. Exactly.
You read the scriptures, you read the prayers of the Mass, and then you look at your list of music. To me, that's a prayer.
Right. Exactly.
Many, many years ago, I'm going to go back like 25 years ago, a young woman came up to join the choir. She'd moved to the parish. She sang in her choir in her previous parish. Very nice person. The only reason she stopped singing was she had children and had a family to raise. But after her attendance at the second rehearsal, she said, "I'd like to talk to you privately after rehearsal." I said, "Sure." And she said, "Can I ask you a question?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "Why don't you start choir rehearsal with a prayer?" And I had never thought about that. And I thought, that's a really good suggestion. And till this day, every time we have choir rehearsal, we start with a prayer. I do 2 things. It's a simple prayer, and then we remember everyone in the parish that's died between rehearsals. We mention them by name, and we pray for them and for their soul. And that just now has become second nature for me in the choir loft. It has nothing to do with what we're singing. It's just this is our time to focus on why we're here and what we're going to do with our evening. To take it a step further, as I mentioned earlier before we went live, I always have perfect attendance at our parties for the choir. They all show. But we were sitting in a local restaurant. It's a restaurant that Stephen frequents in town here. And so we were sitting there as a choir, and we had our cocktails, And then we ordered our dinner, and dinner was served. And one of the women in the choir said, we really need to say grace.
Nice.
And I thought, we really do. And all of a sudden, 25 people in unison spoke the grace before meals.
Wow.
The restaurant went silent. And people kept walking over and said, well, who are you? I said, well, this is the adult choir at St. Luke's. And people said that was a really nice thing to do. We do need to pray a little bit more in our lives, and somewhat publicly too, without being embarrassed about it. Or, or feeling like, oh, I don't want to offend someone, because I'm really tired of this politically correct stuff in my life. Don't even want to go with you on that topic. But
yes, no.
No, you're right. And that's how we that's how we show our faith. That's how we evangelize. We do that. Somebody comes over, asks questions. If you're into RCIA, this is how you evangelize. You evangelize by being, sometimes not so much by doing. If you are exhibiting who you are as a Christian, then people get attracted to that, or at least want to know more about it.
We do that all the time in restaurants. It was, my husband was in the Franciscans for 9 years, and it was something that was formed in him. He cannot put a morsel of food in his mouth unless he prays.
There you go.
And so whether we're home here or whether we're at a restaurant, he's somewhat more low-key when we're at a restaurant, but we always pray over the food.
Good. I'll remember that the next time we go out to dinner.
Yes.
Remind Kevin.
We do. As a matter of fact, I was thinking about that Mexican
here we go.
restaurant we went to. And I think he did say a very quick prayer over the food.
I think he did. Number 4. Here we go. Gird your loins. The us versus them Catholic.
Oh, here we go.
Mea culpa.
Listen, I gotta go cook dinner. You know what I mean?
I have to cook dinner too.
Yeah.
Okay. Should we just leave that one alone because we've talked about it a lot on this podcast? Yeah. Y'all know what we feel about this. We united we stand, divided we fall. So let's get together. And then the 5th and last one, the bracket, insert your pet issue here, Catholic.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you spend more time thinking about one issue of the faith than your relationship with Jesus?
I have a perfect example.
Okay.
We were sitting in the sacristy before 4:00 Mass on Saturday.
Okay.
And the lector comes running into the sacristy and she goes, everybody's going to vote for blank, 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 right? And, of course, I don't live in Providence, so I didn't even know what they were talking about.
Oh, good Lord.
And I said, who and why? And she said, well, he's against abortion, and he's the only candidate to vote for. Well, when I heard the name of this guy, I know this guy's a crook.
Whoa!
He may be against abortion, but he's done some other really questionable things.
Ouch.
Now, if abortion is your only issue, then vote for the crook.
Wow.
But there's got to be other issues like honesty,
right?
Social justice,
mm-hmm.
Other things that you need to keep in mind that the church stands for.
Right.
And that's what that was.
Yeah. Your pet issue.
I know that you're not a native Rhode Islander, but you're pretty close to being a native Rhode Islander. You've lived here a long time.
50 years.
Okay? Having said that, and I'm a native Rhode Islander, having lived within a 5-mile radius of where I now live.
Yeah, he's real.
I admit. We all know that most of our local politicians are crooks.
Yes,
yep.
It's just the way it is.
And listen, with a name like last name like mine, I'm not saying a word. So.
No, it goes across all ethnic grades.
Yeah.
All the ethnic lines, yes.
It just slays me that if you let them stay in office long enough, they will become crooked. I mean, it's a terrible thing.
Yeah, but you know.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
Yeah. I would hope that some of them the thing is, it's the climate. If we live in a climate, especially in the state of Rhode Island, if you don't know much about the state of Rhode Island, we seem to have the per capita square footage of a lot of people who think they can get away with things.
Yes.
Yeah. Everybody in the state thinks they can get away with things. So trying to find somebody who doesn't think that way is almost like trying to find the proverbial needle in the haystack.
Yeah, but this particular person has also been
indicted.
Publicly. Yeah.
Yeah. Do not vote for the people who've been indicted or in jail.
Yeah. But that's the point. Is the one issue Catholic?
Yeah, it's the one issue. Yeah.
That you judge by just one issue.
Right.
You know?
Exactly.
And that everything else they're doing is totally counter to the Catholic Church teaching.
And unfortunately, we are in the state of Rhode Island where it's all too familiar for a person to say, "I know a guy."
Oh yeah.
Yep. Because we all know a guy.
Yeah.
That's right.
We actually do. We actually do. So there's.
And we say that about our local politics.
Yes.
But I will also say, being a Catholic Church musician.
Oh boy!
When someone comes up to me and says, "Oh, my daughter's getting married, and I know a guy," I tremble. But that is a discussion for a whole.
That's a whole other podcast, and I'm gonna.
And that's not for. I don't think it would be a podcast for public consumption.
No, it would not. So there.
A good cocktail party discussion.
Yes, it would. There are the 5 warning signs of a toxic faith. Thank you to our Facebook Voice of the People for putting that up there.
Yes.
and Joanne's going to really try not to put such controversial stuff up on Facebook anymore. I think we've done.
Joanne, I do have to say this.
What?
Stephen has been saying this for years.
Okay.
And as I get older, I think I'm going to have to, in my retirement, take up this project. Stephen says that we need to write a book.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, we do. We actually do.
I mean,
we sure
only 20 people would read it, but they would certainly.
Oh no, I think it would sell just as well as like that 50 Shades of Grey book.
Yeah.
Telling you.
Oh.
I mean, Steve, I can see it now. Right on the shelf, it tallies. It would fly off the shelf.
Oh,
Yes.
jeez.
No.
The only problem is in order to avoid libel.
Yeah.
We have to preface it by a long time ago in a diocese far, far away.
No. We would have to have it published after we're dead.
Yeah.
That is the only way it would work. Okay.
Unfortunately, I'm very close to coining a title.
Oh.
And I think it would be either wouldn't believe life as a Catholic Church musician.
Okay.
Or, from a personal point of view, I was going to call it Tales from the Loft.
Yeah, well, yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, Tales from the Loft. I've thought of that too. A View from the Loft that's what I thought of.
Yes.
But now somebody will, get that domain name of viewfromtheloft.com.
Yeah.
All right. I think at this point we've talked enough without a topic to warrant a podcast episode with very few glitches, I will say, from this point of view. Now when I have
the fact that we couldn't get Nancy in.
Yeah, that's the only thing. And we feel bad that Nancy Smith wasn't able to get on here with us, but now comes the good part because I now have to look at both audio and video before I put it up. So I have no idea what this new software will do to our video. So it's possible we may not have video and only audio, or we may have both. Time will tell. But we will see. So we are going to run into wrap up at this point. So again, if you want to, please send us a topic for the next podcast. MondayMorningCatholic@gmail.com, MondayMorningCatholic.net. You can put it in the comment box. Facebook.com/MondayMorningCatholic or 774-955-0659 is our voice feedback line. Guys, this has not been bad. And at this point, I'll let you know afterwards.
Never said anybody's name.
This is true, and I just wish I could have done the hour before. and then portion it out small, but we won't. we won't go there.
Joanne, can we stay on live after you end the podcast? Just for
yes, we can. Yes, we can.
I need to ask you a question.
Okay, we can do that. So let me end this thing up. So thank you all very much for being on this journey with us. We will try to get a better topic next time. But hey, maybe you like this. Tell us that too. So for Linda Reed, Steve Romano, Steve Kirby, and myself, Joanne Mercier, thank you so much for being with us. God bless. And as always, ciao for now.